I'm going to introduce Tom Forth now. Many of you may know Tom Forth from Twitter. I've never known anyone to tweet so regularly and so thoroughly about buses and bins. Recently, earlier this year, I live in Sheffield, and Andy Haldane, who's the chief economist of the Bank of England, gave a lecture, and it was kind of about like localism. It was sort of saying, we need to listen to the regions and the little people a little bit. And he was like, and then we're going to go to some work, and and he pulled up Tom's work. So I was like, oh, that's my mate. That's really good. So that was quite exciting. So we're very honoured to be joined by, Tom of sort of the Bank of England, I guess. But I'll hand over.
Thanks very much. I do not speak on behalf of the Bank of England. I do have some funny stories about the Bank of England, though. Maybe I'll tell one now, even though it's streamed. We once talked about doing some work with the Bank of England, and someone there genuinely told me, we don't have the money for that. The Bank of England. That prints the money. I'm sure there are, maintained structures that mean they can't just give me money, though, so that's what they meant. Today I'm going to talk about bins, buses, housing, not the glamorous part of housing, although it's the good part of housing, but it's not glamorous. So those are the three topics. I think they're great. Not a lot of talks about them generally. Bins. I like the pothole talk, right? That's where we're really talking about. This is the thing that makes stuff work. Fixing your clothes is good. I'm not good. I've got a 15-year-old bicycle. Actually, it's 20-year-old. My bicycle's 20 years old. That's how old I am. My shoes are quite old. I'm not 20. I got it for my 15th birthday. You can work forward how old I am. So I'm going to talk mostly about the systems that make them work. Generally, people would get very bored unless they can see the outcome. So the first slide in all of the things where the systems that make things work is going to be the outcome. And you're going to go, oh, that's cool. And then I'll go, it's not cool at all. What's really cool is a big database or a spreadsheet behind it. Okay? So that's me. I am the head of data at the Open Data Institute Leeds. I run two companies that actually pay the bills, and that one is just where we do lots of cool stuff in collaboration with those two companies and loads of other companies and organisations and institutions. With a top floor, come in and see us. We have coffee, tea, Wi-Fi. We're opposite the bus station. It's very nice. It's very well maintained, apart from the gents' toilets, which I'm working on. We have some drainage issues there, It's nicer for women to come. There you go. I just go for a pee downstairs in the cafe. So you can see us at odileeds.org, where we've got lots of stuff on the web. I've just checked our website on Archive Ready. We score better than the UK government and the BBC, so I'm very happy. You can read our stuff now or in 50 years, depending on how you feel about it. Those are the people that make ODI Leeds happen. So I really like the stuff that Ben said about the need for institutions or some structure, right? Sustainability, often when we hear the word sustainability, we think about not damaging the environment, and we think about making sure that things exist. And one of the ways that you make sure that things keep existing is you find money to pay for them. So sustainability is very important also in terms of business. Those are the 16. I'm very happy now that we've got to 16 because you can quickly remember because it's 4x4 and then you do some times tables. They range from local government, like City of Bradford Council, to big consulting organisations, big companies, KPMG, AQL, BGSS, and they all have an interest in open data. And that's what I'm largely going to talk about here. So open data, which I will give a definition of at the end, but it's basically data that is open and free for anyone to use, reuse, and do whatever they like with it. Jenny, who I taught later, could give you a better definition, but it's close enough, right? You can do whatever you like with open data. That's pretty important. A key thing that I quite like about open data is you can make money from using it. So sometimes people release data with, you can do whatever you like with it, but don't make any money. which makes it quite hard to sustain your business model to make your things sustainable and maintainable. So open data doesn't include that caveat, and it lets us do, I think, more interesting things. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, there will be a URL at the bottom, and you can play with all these tools if you want. So if any of you want to apply for a social house in the city of Leeds, you can do it at imactivate.com/housing. It's a pretty basic website. It's used by 5,000 people per week in Leeds, so it's the main portal now for people to access how they apply for social housing. The key part of it is that on the left, you say what kind of household you are, and the only clever bit of it really is that it encourages you to apply in wards that were different to the one that you asked to apply for housing in. That's it. That's the only sneaky bit of it. And the reason for that is that what happens in Leeds and a lot of other cities is people apply for housing in parts of the city where there isn't much social housing, and therefore they wait for 3 or 4 or 5 years on a list, when if they would have just applied for housing 2 streets away, they could have got a house straight away. And they get very frustrated. They see other people jumping ahead of them on the list. They're not jumping ahead of them. They just applied in a place where they would get a home. We push people in this way to apply for housing close to where they are or close to where they want to be, but somewhere where they might actually get it. But this is the boring part. Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter at all. That's just what people use. That's the real bit. That's what you really want, right? So every week, Leeds City Council run a housing bid round. It's effectively like an eBay auction once a week, and depending on your bid price, which isn't actually a price, it's your need for housing is the price. It's not about money, it's about need. You will be assigned or not a home. And at the end of every week, Leeds City Council publish all the addresses of all the houses and what the need price was in terms of how long have you been on the list, are you a single parent, do you have children under 5, etc., etc. That's what your need score is. Who was the least needy person, what was their score, that got assigned each home. And they publish that as a big spreadsheet on the web. It's about 4 megabytes every week, because it includes all the past assignments. And that is maintained by people. So each single row of that spreadsheet that's published every week is input by a housing officer every single week. And if one of them is wrong, if even one is wrong, our tool is wrong. And that is the hard work of creating what is a very cheap front-end tool that helps people to find housing. The real work is inputting each of those rows and making sure they're correct. And what's quite good is because it's open data, everyone can look at it, and there are a lot of mistakes, or at least there were 3 years ago when we started this process. Because everyone can look at it, it turns out that if you're really desperate for a home, you're quite motivated, probably the most motivated anyone can be. Possibly starvation would push you harder, but generally you're up there. A lot of people find problems in that data. A lot of them tell the council that they've messed up, and it gets fixed pretty quickly. And I think that's a key lesson for me about maintenance, is that the more eyes you have on something, the quicker it will get fixed. And if you are open and you release this data, I think you will find that more people than you ever imagined will suddenly figure out how to open a CSV file. You might not thought they could do it. They can do it when it means they get housed. So that's what powers it. The next thing I want to talk about is bins. So bin collections are one of the most reliable services in this country. If your train or your bus were to arrive on time as reliably as your bin collected, you would be so happy. We're talking like 0.001% failure rate on bin collections. It's tiny. Now, the challenge with that is that in the city of Leeds, there are 330,000 households. It's the second biggest local authority in the UK. And typically, you have 2 bins. which are collected every other week, generally. So you've got one bin collection per week on average. So that's 330,000. So it's about 70, 80, 90,000, depending on whether they collect on Saturdays and Sundays, which they do more than most people think. Collections a day. So 70,000 collections of bins a day, about 10 average fail. It's just brilliant. It's just amazing. I'll tell you what now, every single one of those failings results in a phone call to the council, at least one. So it's quite a cost to deal with the failure of bin collections. It's something that people really aren't happy about. Another failure in it is that people forget to put their bin out, and then they say that their bin wasn't collected. The liars. They pull the bin out onto the street to get it collected at 8:30, and they go, "Oh, the bin was out." I was like, "It wasn't." And now, in the cab of all of the bin collection lorries, they have little smartphone type things where the people who drive those lorries can report on whether a bin was either missed due to a problem. I love reading the bin missed due to a problem reports. So it's usually something boring like a car has parked on entrance to narrow street. Yeah, so couldn't get down the street, something like that. But there's others that are just great. Aggressive dog not chained. That's my favourite one every time. Because, if you're collecting 5,000 bins that day, you just look at that thing and you think, no, today that is not happening. We produce this app. It reminds people on the morning or the evening before their collection when to put the bin out. That's all it does. It really doesn't do anything more. It tells them what to put in what bin. It tells them where they can take glass, because in Leeds they won't collect your glass. You have to take it to a bottle bank. You're not allowed to use that word within a waste department, by the way. It's a supplementary collection receiver, something like that. You can't call it bottle bank. You can't call an incinerator an incinerator. That's a energy recovery, recycling and energy recovery facility. That's a RERF. And they also have a MRF, and then there's a phrase called a dirty MRF as well. And that's, I think that's a bottle bank that's had the wrong type of thing put in the bottle collector, right? So if you put a plank in a bottle bank, that's a dirty MRF. You learn some stuff doing this, but this is all collected, right? All these people driving these bin lorries are tapping away, going, "I couldn't deliver that one. I got this one. There's a problem with the dog at that number 5." They also get their routes. All of their routes are there in the cab, so the routes change surprisingly frequently. So we won't think about this, but you might get angry if your normal bin day changes. You'll be like, "Oh, it's always Tuesday morning. I want my bin collected on Tuesday morning." What changes more and more, and in the future it will change increasingly often. And that's because recycling and waste collection are quite seasonal, the amount of waste you produce. At Christmas you produce loads of waste. And there's some holidays for the people who collect it. That means that all the bin routes have to be much shorter, right? If a bin lorry gets full before the end of a bin route, that's it, it's game over. They just have to stop the route, right? Because they've got to drive to a dump, unload the truck, by which time it's 8 a.m. They can't drive around at 8 a.m. because all of us will scream at them for being in rush hour traffic. So it's a nightmare. So these routes change quite a lot. It means the drivers typically can't remember them as well as they used to be able to. It doesn't matter because they get shown around. But how do they get shown around their routes? How do they know that there's a dangerous dog? How do they know that the person at number 16 is disabled and requires a service whereby you go into the home to collect their rubbish? All of these things are there, and they are all. There we go. So every single day, Leeds City Council publish 300 megabytes of raw data on all of the stuff I've just talked about, bin collections. It's actually produced by a company called Bartek on a lovely industrial estate just outside of Barnsley, which is why they're called Bartek. And that is what lets me produce that app. So the app is really, really easy. And it also powers the City Council's website. It also powers adverts that go on buses. It powers leaflets that go through your door. It powers stickers that go onto the bins. So everything is powered from that bit of data. And as I've just said, at the raw level, that data was created by this company in Barnsley called Bartek, but it was created in collaboration with everyone who has ever moaned about a bin collection being missed. Anyone who ever put a complaint on City Council's website saying that their current app is misreporting their collection date. Everyone who's ever been angry because their dangerous dog scared off the bin collector. It's all been added to that. So that needs maintaining. Without the maintenance of that, we can't do any of the cool stuff, which is a bin app, that we want to do. Right, this is the work. So I've talked about bins and housing, last one, buses. There we go. That is a bus in Birmingham. So some people quite like this. Birmingham is very angry because that used to be the longest local bus route in Europe. It's the 11C. And Matthew's there. I think you live near it, don't you? Yes. I was talking with someone about this the other day. I believe there's now a longer local bus route in the UK. It's in somewhere else in the Midlands. It might be in the East Midlands. I think it's like some local bus route now that goes in and around Leicester. Anyway, they're furious. So they're thinking about extending the 11C or something. It's a bus route in Birmingham that goes all the way around the outside of the city. There's two versions of it, the 11C and the 11A, and the 11C is slightly longer due to a one-way system somewhere near Aston, I think. But, I'm the kind of person who uses the raw data to look up which one is 2 meters longer. This is the work we did. Birmingham isn't a big city at peak times. How poor public transport explains the UK's productivity problem. We tracked every single bus in the West Midlands. I mean, at the time we published that, we tracked them for 6 months, but we just haven't turned off the server. So we track them now. We've been tracking them for 2 years. And it let us show how much slower buses are at peak time. And all of the work effectively boils down to, if you can't get to central Birmingham at 9 a.m., you don't effectively live in Birmingham. You can't say that you live in Birmingham if you can't get a job there. And all of the work that had been done to look at how big Birmingham is had been done based on the timetables for the buses. But the buses don't run to timetables because the city's full of traffic. So when you actually track the buses, you can understand how far away you can really live from Birmingham and still get there at 9 in the morning. And the answer is not very far at all. And it makes Birmingham, in effect, quite a small city. If you don't live near a train station in Birmingham and you want to get somewhere at peak time in the morning, you aren't going to get anywhere. That's all powered by this thing, apiportal.tfwm.org.uk. You can also track every single bus in Birmingham if you wish, right from there. But there's more. Because this was what I did at the time. But who cares about just Birmingham? No one cares about just Birmingham. You can track most buses in Liverpool too. Is this your site, Matthew? It looks like a site that you would build though, doesn't it? But, so there's this great website called bustimes.org, and you can track most buses in the whole of Great Britain on it. Go and have a look. You can see all the buses in Liverpool now, except for those run by First. And you can see all the buses in Greater Manchester, except for those run by First. You can see all the buses in West Yorkshire, except for those run by First. Anyone from First buses in today? We'll have a word later. But you can track all these buses. It's brilliant. So all this work that I did for Birmingham, you could do for pretty much everywhere now. And I should say that why is this a maintenance issue? Well, the maintenance issue is how we collect this data. When you get on the bus, there's a ticket machine. That ticket machine's job is to sell you a ticket and make the bus company money, but it also has a little mobile phone in it with a tracker, and it beams back its direction to a central computer every few seconds, and it says, I'm here, I'm a bus. I'm here, I'm a bus. That's all it does. Oh, and my registration number is this. So that's it. And when you collate all of that data, that's what lets you build this product. And that requires a huge bit of data. And it was all put in just to power the little your next bus on a timetable, but there you go. This is the next thing we're doing. This is the last thing I'll talk about. Every few months, well, every week, somewhere in Great Britain, every single bus company and every train company inputs. It's pretty much a manual process still. There's some efforts to automate. It's pretty much a manual process. They input every single journey that all of their vehicles will do for the next 3 or 4 months. And that is all collected together. It's collected together in a beautiful place in Devon. I don't know why Devon, but there's where it is, at Travel Line. It's a lovely data set called the Travel Line National Data Set. And the rail companies do their own thing because they're their own people. And what it lets us do, once you've spent huge amounts of pain parsing all of that data and understanding it, that originally came from someone, usually on a map, drawing circles around it and doing times, is you can do these travel accessibility maps. So this is what I'll end on. So this is a website that I build. It's not open yet. I'm still playing around with it. I don't want you to break it. I've dropped a pin right at this venue. The circles or the shapes are how far you can get in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and 1 hour from here. That's all powered by open data. You see this thing where it says 88,000 stops. That's how many stops I'm talking about. There's a whole other data set of where all the bus stops are in Britain. I'm careful to say Great Britain, right? Northern Ireland has devolved for public transport, and therefore it's harder to get their data on this. So just Britain. There are vertices and edges, and any of you do graph stuff will know what that means, but it's all the routes you can take to get places. This one you won't see. This is just my plug for Northern Powerhouse Rail and making the railways better. I live in Manchester. I work quite a lot in Leeds. I'm often in Liverpool. I calculated using that tool how far you could get to within an hour from to here. From where could you get to here in an hour? The answer for today is not very far, right? It's just Merseyside. But once we've built this mega railway for huge amounts of money, you could get to here within an hour from not only Merseyside, but also Manchester, Leeds, and most importantly, the beautiful city of Bradford. So that's that. Last 3 questions. Open data is data that is free for anyone to use, reuse, and redistribute. I put that on there as a definition because I always forget exactly what it is. But my 3 questions to everyone really are, 1, what open data do you or your organization release or create? Probably most of you release and create more than you think, but that's something for you to consider. Where can I find that open data? And 3, why aren't you releasing more open data, and can I help you? So if you are thinking, look, all of this free maintenance that you've just seen happen, which isn't free, but it isn't paid for by you, it's paid for by you in collaboration with other people, looks really great, right? It looks really cool how that bin collection data got improved by other people. It looks really cool how the bus times data got improved by other people. I added accessibility information just over the last 2 weeks to every railway station in the UK because otherwise I couldn't build those isochrones. That wasn't paid for really by anyone. It just needed to happen, and because OpenStreetMap is open data, I maintained it. I found some money. Probably I'll get Arup to pay for it. But this is how the maintenance works. So why aren't you releasing more open data, and can I help you? If anyone wants help to release open data because they think they'll get some of the benefits that I've just shown, let me know. So that's me. Thank you very much.